Namaste, Jai Hind, and welcome to this edition of The Right Stand. The Delhi riots 2020 and some disclosures made by the Delhi police hint at a deep-rooted conspiracy against Bharat that was hatched in the year 2020. So what we saw around in the neighborhood, Bharat was perhaps the first testing ground before the upheavals that we witnessed in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and Nepal. We don't know, viewers, but that's what it points to at this point. There was violence orchestrated on the streets of the national capital at a time when the President of the United States had touched down into Bharat on what was seen as a significant, important visit. And this was just months after the big victory for Prime Minister Narendra Modi and comeback in 2019. And this was just a few months after there was a clarion call made by a tall political leader that what could not be sorted out by the ballot will now be sorted out on the streets. What could not be done or control of the Sansad has not been achieved, but it will all be sorted out in the streets. And soon after that, we saw this mayhem. Sensational charges are out in the Delhi Police's 177-page affidavit in the Honorable Supreme Court. The revelations have been made in a 177-page affidavit that is in the process of being filed in response to the bail pleas of several accused, including student activists Umar, Khalid and Sharjeel Imam. Now, according to the police's line of argument, investigators have pieced together ocular, documentary and technical evidence to show that the riots were the result of a deep-rooted conspiracy engineered along communal lines, and the plan was designed to weaponize public dissent against the Citizenship Amendment Act with a whole lot of canards that was spread around the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019. Delhi police is set to tell the Supreme Court that the violence that rocked the national capital was not a spontaneous outbreak of anger, but a part of an organized regime change operation aimed at undermining Bharat's sovereignty and also to displace a democratically elected leadership and government. The police claim that the organized and calibrated violence followed a nationwide pattern, replicating similar outbreaks in states such as Uttar Pradesh, Assam, West Bengal, Kerala and Karnataka. So the artery, the veins and the limbs, if you were to plot it mentally in your map of the country, you would see that they were orchestrated at such pressure points that could perhaps orchestrate or force a regime change. That's what the cops are saying. The riots aimed at destabilizing government through orchestrated violence. Well, we will have Pradeep Bhandari, national spokesperson of the BJP, and Priyanka Kakkar of the Aam Aadmi Party joining us in a bit. But first, let's go across and I say good evening to Dr. Anand Ranganathan, author, scientist, political commentator, and who tracked these developments around the Delhi riots very closely. But first, let's go across to Sonali Chitarkarji, who's the co-author, along with Prerna Malhotra and Monica Arora of the Delhi Riots 2020. Sonali ji, namaste. Thank you for your time. Anand ji, namaste. Namaste. My first question, when you did a deep dive, and your book is quite comprehensive about the untold stories, what did not come to the face, did this ever reflect for you that there could be a deep-rooted conspiracy and perhaps a regime change plan?
Absolutely. If you see the book, the entire book talks about a regime change very systematically. We have referred to Saul Alinsky, who talks about 10 rules for radicals. And we have mapped out on ground how this international network, internationally decided and framed out model was applied during the Delhi riots. And the basic contours of that model are that the hammering was happening across fault lines and across policy fault lines. See, we are a democracy. So policy contestations are okay, but something so blatantly false was engineered and the fault lines were exploited. They were used in order to destabilize the, not just the government, but also to engineer communal rights, which would have absolutely led to a regime change. Now you have seen similar things happening in Nepal. Now we have the benefit of hindsight. We have seen similar things happening in Nepal, in Bangladesh, and now is the time that I reiterate in this forum that yes, the government, the police really had a huge challenge in front of them and they managed it well. We didn't succumb to a regime change, thankfully. But yes, it's all laid out in the book. Systematically, fault lines. We have a Hindu-Muslim fault line, and systematically that was consistently hammered at, consistently exploited, and the focus was a regime change. Please read the book. We have the entire model given to you there.
Explain, elaborate a little more. I've read the book, but unfortunately I'm not carrying a copy. I left it at home. But at that time, it just looked like you were taking an extra leap. It just looked like you were inferring beyond what could be inferred. But on hindsight, and the hindsight is a luxury that many people have. But when you got into it, at what point did you believe that there is much more to it than meets the eye? Sonali, you just explain the entire model.
See, I will absolutely not agree with you that we took a leap. We, within 3 days of the riots happening, when we were allowed to go in, when civilians were being allowed to go in, we went to ground. We saw the entire area where the riots were engineered. We met people, we talked to both communities. We spread out into that entire area. We spoke to police people, we went to the madrasas, we spoke to Muslim leaders, we spoke to Hindu leaders, we spoke to political leaders in that area, and the model worked like this. Okay, at the core of the model is always a policy. Now you have an elected democratic government, they are going to take policy decisions. So the moment a policy comes into force, the policy becomes the anvil around which there are riots, there are issues, there is agitation, mobilization engineered. And see, the riots were in February 2020, but right from December 2019, university campuses were being systematically targeted. Students are a group. Students are a group which are very, they can be mobilized very easily. You have seen it in Nepal. So we spoke to students, and this entire area, Northeast Delhi, was, systematically streets were being mobilized, streets were being, violence on streets was happening. So, and it's all there in the police reports that there are so many FIRs, there are so many, public property was destroyed. So systematically this entire thing was built up. Okay, then President Trump was supposed to come. So what better time than to, international eyes were internationally on India. So what better, time could they have had? So one part of the model is you choose a policy, you agitate student groups, urban groups. Please go through the strategy document of the CPI Maoist. It's all written there. So they did what was in their documents called urban work. Okay, so they worked on students, they worked on women. Why were women kept in the forefront? They worked on, parts of the population. Northeast Delhi, as it is, has a very, it's a combustible demographic profile there. So systematically, some areas we went, for instance, we went to Hauskas. We saw that systematically these camps, which were anti-NRC camps, were established all over the city. But these camps were very close to areas like temples, So these crowds would stand in front of temples in areas like Hauskas. We saw this, we had videos of this. So they would stand in front of temples, and this becomes a very, very dangerous situation. And then you had all the incidents happening in Jafrabad. Once the people are on the roads, to be very frank, Muslim leaders were trying their level best also, but it was out of hand.
So you're saying Muslim leaders were actually trying to pacify the crowds, but the way it was stoked in such a way that, it was just there to try and incite the crowds and create mayhem on the streets, and to show that there is utter lawlessness and there has to be perhaps some overthrowing of the particular current and elected regime. Is it a little far-fetched? Priyanka Kakkar and
Absolutely.
Pradeep Bhandari also with us. My namaste and Jai Hind to everybody, all our panelists with us. Dr. Ranganathan, thank you for your patience. Just come to you before, we just get a reaction from the Aam Aadmi Party, which was in power at that time. There is an AAP councillor who's also caught into this entire thing, and he's seen as one of the key orchestrators of organizing some of the mayhem. There are these student leaders for whom there has been now a collective plea saying, how many years are you going to keep us in jail? Bail should be the right. And there is an opposition to this. Priyanka ji, how do you see this? Namaste.
I think the first and foremost question is that the police have said that this was orchestrated for a regime change. We must question who will benefit from such a regime change, who wanted the regime change. You will know in 2020 we had a brutal majority even before going into elections then, which was scheduled in February of 2020. You will recall that only BJP gained from 3 seats to 8 seats after we saw the current existing law minister Kapil Mishra fanning communal sentiments, giving hate speeches, जो आज तक unfortunately एक भी FIR नहीं हुई है उन पर. We saw Anurag Thakur making very communal statements and trying to orchestrate violence. So perhaps there is some truth to the statement that it was orchestrated by the regime change, but I do think that the real culprits still are not behind the bars. And क्योंकि किसी पे तो आरोप थोपना था और अभी तक कोई 5 साल हो गए, we hear time and again the kind of tippanis the court has given in the Delhi riots case, including the court going to the extent of saying historically it is the worst investigation ever imagined, including the fact that 25,000 rupees fine was imposed on an SHO in one of the related matters, including the court commenting that this investigation is a waste of taxpayers' money. So, well, if now the police think that this was all orchestrated to orchestrate a regime change, we must also question who stands to benefit from it and who did it.
Pradeep Bhandari?
Well, Anandji, the truth of the matter is the following. That it is clearly established that the entire Delhi riots were premeditated, pre-planned conspiracy which had two objectives: a regime change, and second, to challenge the sovereignty and integrity of the country, which was just not limited to Delhi. It also had objectives to reach to Uttar Pradesh and Assam and various other parts, with CA being an alibi of the protest because there was a visiting dignitary coming to India. Let us look at who benefits from it and who are the political conspirators who were backing it. This gentleman's name is Sanjay Singh. When Tahir Hussain, who is one of the key conspirators of Delhi riot, who is involved, who is accused of funding Gulshima Fatwa, who is also linked to the main conspirator Umar Khalid, it is Sanjay Singh in the Aam Aadmi Party which came out in defense of Tahir Hussain, saying that Tahir Hussain was incarcerated for he being a Muslim. Aam Aadmi Party's alliance partner, previous alliance partner, Congress Party's P. Chidambaram, said that Umar Khalid, who is the key conspirator of the case, was just incarcerated and was made as a scapegoat, and Digvijay Singh came out in defense of Umar Khalid, the key conspirator, saying that he is only being targeted for his religion. Again, the argument here is very malified and wrong and mischievous, because the entire delay which has taken place has happened in a very conscious manner in order to play a fake victim card, because it was the trial court in the past which observed that it is the counsel from the point of view of the witness, from the accused, who had delayed the trial. And this is again the part number 22 of the charge sheet, where it is said that the entire process to delay the trial was again conscious and was from a strategy so that Umar Khalid and Sharjeel Imam, mind you, who said that he wants to take out the chicken neck from the northeast, could get fake victim card. And the irony died 1,000 deaths when Sharjeel Imam filed a bail plea which was rejected in the court, saying that he wanted to fight the Bihar election. And this is the chat of Sharjeel Imam with his brother, where he himself acknowledges that he is a mastermind. It is clearly evident that the only beneficiaries of this was the Aam Aadmi Party and the Congress Party, which has openly come out in defense of the rioters and till now not stood with the IB officer Ankit Sharma, who was stabbed with more than 100 times, and also the constable Ratan Lal, who was killed in Delhi riots. So I believe that whatever the Aam Aadmi Party says, the truth is out in the open, and because the accused have still not got bail for the last 5 years, tells you how watertight the case is.
Well, before I bring in Dr. Ranganathan, viewers, just the accused and who are all currently incarcerated or under the lens. The Delhi police has detailed the role of the accused persons. Umar Khalid, as named by our panelists, was one of those who ideated the entire Chakka Jam for the riots in 2020. Local women of Selampur in Delhi were made to stockpile knives, acids and other dangerous articles to engineer riots. When desired scale of violence was not attained, Umar Khalid arranged illegal Bangladeshi women from Jahangirpuri. Sharjeel Imam, under Umar Khalid's guidance and other top conspirators, engineered the first phase of the Delhi riots from 13th December to the 20th of December 2019. Sharjeel made imams of local masjids to read out pamphlets in their speeches to incite the Muslim mob. Sharjeel Imam admitted in his December speech that Jamia that the riots happened were only a spark. Sharjeel Imam gave an instigating speech for Chakka Jam at Jamia Millia. He gave an illustration that if even a flyover collapses, the whole world will know of it. Sharjeel Imam exhorted Jamia and JNU students to execute disruptive Chakka Jam in Delhi to an extent that essential services such as milk and water be paralyzed. Jan 2020 speech of Sharjeel Imam establishes that the fact that he was threatening unity, integrity and sovereignty of India by exhorting Muslim population to dismember Muslim-dominated regions from the Union of India. The chicken neck remark also came around in that speech itself. Now, in a sharp rebuke to the accused, the police have also accused them of abusing the judicial process by filing frivolous applications and adopting coordinated tactics to delay proceedings. Delhi police said that such conduct amounts to a brazen abuse of process. The affidavit further asserts that these delays have hindered the course of justice. The Delhi police in its submissions described them as the intellectual architects of the conspiracy, while the accused have consistently asserted that their actions were within the bounds of their constitutional right to dissent and bore no connection to the outbreak of the violence. Dr. Anand Ranganathan with us. Let's look at a larger perspective. Whose regime change? The Aam Aadmi Party firmly secured. Was this Delhi riots going to dislodge them, especially when law and order was not there under their belt? It was with the central administration. The CAA, NRC deliberately conjoining these two issues were absolute variants with each other, had no bearing, was a narrative that was spread by the opposition collectively. And we've seen there was an attempt to trigger nationwide protests. The other part, the Fisher lines, demographics. With the farmers' protests, they tried to use Sikhs, tried to bring back the K narrative later on. And with this CAA NRC, it was the Hindu-Muslim divide and to try and push that fissure in such a way to create, and again, orchestrated by our students, by our youth. Now, this template is very similar to what we witnessed in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh and also Nepal, Dr. Ranganathan. So was Bharat the first testing ground? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yes, and good evening to my fellow panelists. It's been a wonderful debate. The first thing I'd like to say is that one of the core principles, if I may, of regime change protocol is that you must not disclose, or even better, must not know what kind or which would be the incoming regime. That's the basic principle. That is how you rope in innocent, gullible youngsters or so-called Gen Z for protest, whereby you declare, we don't know, we're just doing a revolution. We will figure it out who the incoming regime would be. That is a classic deception. And regime change was an obvious goal of the anti-CAA and farm law protests. Anand, remember Shaheen Bagh? Disgruntled, hate-filled bigots blocking streets illegally, inconveniencing lakhs of commuters for no rhyme or reason, except to display a show of strength. Tera mera rishta kya, la ilaha illallah. Remember all that? हम लेके रहेंगे जिना वाली आज़ादी, हिंदुत्व की कबर खुदेगी, शहादा replacing Ashok Chakra, children wanting to kill Mobi. Remember farm law protests? Highways blocked, Chakka Jam, parliament hung, people killed, Delhi laid to siege, nation suffering an economic loss of 3,500 crores every day for an entire year. And in both those cases, the opposition, especially the Congress, had actually demanded the CAA and the very farm laws verbatim. It was in their election manifesto. But when Modi delivered them, thinking it will be the easiest reform to bring in because I didn't promise them, the Congress did. They took a U-turn. So it wasn't the speech of Kapil Mishra or Varis Pathan or Harsh Mandar that was responsible for the Delhi riots that killed both Hindus and Muslims, but rather the action of people like Tahir Hussain, these regime changers who ironically were a minister. The charges against Khalid were for conspiring with Hussain. What are these people talking about? It was based on call records, as we just said, meetings, Hussein's own confession. Are we going to disregard all that? Look, what is the fact here? The fact is that Umar Khalid's is a journey that began with his eulogizing the terrorist Burhan Wani, Gen Z, making out the terrorist killing a judicial murder, and from there to Shaheen Bagh and then to Delhi riots. Anand is a lesson for all youngsters. Hate pays, but only for the shepherds. The lambs proceed to the slaughterhouse, and all along the way they bleat. The fact is, hatred for Modi transmogrified for these people into hatred for a plural, non-appeasing India.
Priyanka ji, how do you want to respond? Was the AAP in on this? Did they know this was happening? There are many times questions are asked whether certain entities were acting on their own, irrespective of their political leanings, or was there a understanding somewhere that let this happen, facilitate this? Fayda eventually sabka hoga. Those who are pitted against the BJP and Prime Minister Modi. Please, yes.
We are a very padhi likhi sarkar, and violence is not something that is associated with the Aam Aadmi Party. Today everybody knows that if there is any danga, whether it is Manipur, whether it is Nu, how are they orchestrated and how they are executed. I think everybody knows that. There are enough findings to that effect also. Because Tahir Hussein's name was taken more than twice now, I feel compelled to answer that he no longer is in a party, but what had happened subsequently while he was in jail, BJP ki B team, MIM did give him a ticket from Muzaffarabad. I'm mispronouncing the name of the constituency in Delhi, and then after that, when he was given the ticket from that place, he was suddenly granted bail. He was out because BJP ki B team ne unko ticket de di. So I think questions should be asked of the BJP. You know, they can't just run and shoot and scoot each time. Coming back to the more pertinent question is here. I just told you a few instances what court had held with regard to the investigation in the Delhi riots matter. What is important is you will see in our country the conviction rate is very low. Mostly, the conviction rate is only said 28-30%. Why is that? You know, the crime is happening. It's not like nobody killed Jessica, Delhi riots did not happen. All of these crimes are happening. So why are people not convicted? Because one, the investigation is either very shoddy or it is in the wrong direction. Now, in this case also it seems that the main culprits, that the leaders, the people of the BJP who are today ministers, unko hum sabne dange bhadkate hue dekha. But we also saw that when a petition was filed in the High Court of Delhi, that an FIR be registered against Kapil Mishra, a very honorable judge was transferred from Delhi. Should these things not be questioned?
Okay.
Why can't even an FIR not be initiated against a person who gave a hate speech and initiated violence?
Okay. Dr. Ranganathan wants to respond, and then Pradeep Bhandari. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan.
Yeah, no, a couple of facts, and I really admire Priyanka ji. She's a very dear friend, but it's kind of strange that she's talking about the antecedents of Tahir Hussain after he quit AAP, and her next 2 minutes were how BJP and
after we removed him.
To force him. I did not interrupt you. Please, I listened to you. Please have the courtesy. Thank you
but
so
that
much.
fact galat tha aapka, isliye I had to interrupt.
No, 1 second. What was the wrong fact that I quoted out here? Did he not leave AAP?
You said after he quit. I had to correct you after we removed him. Bas utta hi.
Okay, all right. After you removed Tahir Hussain, but the fact of the matter is we are talking of Delhi riots. We're not talking of some conspiracy of BJP A team, B team quoting some Muslim candidate for their victory or whatever. The fact is that Tahir Hussain is on record saying kafiro ko maro. This is the language of the then AAP minister. Before he was removed or quit or whatever it is. So for AAP to not take responsibility.
And subsequently joined BJP's B team.
Okay, ma'am, you've already made your point. Let him complete and then we can take this forward. Otherwise we're going to keep running around in circles like this.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sure.
I mean, you have to admit that Tahir Hussain was from Aam Aadmi Party during the Delhi riots 2020. And he is not just a key conspirator who held secret meetings with all the other two who've been repeatedly denied bail, despite 30,000 pages of electronic evidence, by the way, submitted to the court. Everything is being closely monitored by the court. So please, there is no political angle out here. Are you insinuating that the courts of this country are also bought out? But please answer. Was Tahir Hussain part of the Aam Aadmi Party when he said Kafiron ko maro, and from his rooftop you were hurling bombs?
Well, he was, and I think it's a statement of fact.
Anandji.
At that time, who all gave cover fire, who all said what at that time, it's all on record. It's all on record. Now, whether that was politics, that was a political compulsion, or did people choose their own party and prestige over the interest of the nation? The jury is out there. Let the viewers decide that. But there's another part. You know, one of the things, viewers, is in all this we talk about investigators, we talk about we never talk about the prosecutors. The people who are supposed to do the prosecution in the court of law are the prosecutors, and prosecutors' appointment is in the concurrent list, and they are usually state government or local government appointees. There is no organization. We do not even have a national prosecutor body which will govern the functioning and the appointment of these prosecutors, their training, etc., and what they do with these evidences. So a lot of times, a lot of slips or errors happen in these gaps, and this is in the concurrent list, so they are not central appointees. So state governments can decide who these prosecutors will be and who will be perhaps attached to certain cases. So there is a lot of question mark there on how these issues are actually argued in court by these particular prosecutors. But that's a separate issue. Let's come back to this part before I bring in Sonali ji for final 2-3 questions. Pradeep Bhandari, the BJP is using this for political mileage. There is no conviction, and all of this is being done just because there are these two entities who continue to remain in jail, whereas our law says bail is mandatory, jail is optional, or bail should be preferred over jail. So this is to block their efforts to get bail. Now, how do you respond?
Well, Anandji, the core of the argument of the Aam Aadmi Party spokesperson is a soft support for Sharjeel, Imam and Umar Khalid. Sharjeel Imam's statement is out in open where he wanted to remove Northeast from India and part of Northeast from India, and that's an anti-national statement. And if the Aam Aadmi Party panelists on this show cannot categorically speak against Sharjeel, Imam and Umar Khalid, that can tell you that the appeasement politics is right out there in the open. The learned panelist from the Aam Aadmi Party is a very good advocate and a senior advocate, but she fails to understand a basic principle of law, that it's not the Bharatiya Janata Party which gives a bail to an individual, it's the court which gives the bail. And Tahir Hussain lost by 25, lost the Delhi elections, which tells you what was the mandate of Delhi, which rejected rioters. Two specific interjections here. She is absolutely wrong on what the court said. The the division bench of Justice Naveen Chawla and Shailendra Kumar reaffirmed that the prima facie Sharjeel, Imam and Umar Khalid were involved as the key conspirators of the riots, and so the courts have also held that they are conspirators. The court have not called out openly against the prosecution here. Point number 2, on January 28, 2021, it was Delhi police on record said when Aam Aadmi Party was in power, it was withholding information so that the entire process could be delayed of Delhi riots and the accused could get bail. So it's the Aam Aadmi Party which has tried all under its purview when it was in the state government to give soft support to Tahir Hussain. Please look at if the Aam Aadmi Party was really genuine. Sanjay Singh would have retracted his statement and apologized after Tahir Hussain was removed from the Aam Aadmi Party. Not so. Amatullah Khan continues to say that Delhi riots were a premeditated sajish against the Muslims. Has he acknowledged that it was a sajish against the unity and integrity of India? No, he's not done it. And just towards the end, it is very, very serious. It is not to do with the BJP or the Congress. It is to do with the unity of India. And I will point your attention towards page number 177 of the charge sheet, where it is categorically said that here the police in its charge sheet has just not submitted witness testimonies. It has submitted WhatsApp records where the accused themselves are acknowledging that they are key conspirators, and all of them are also brandishing that they have some soft political support. So my charge here is the following: if the opposition believes that they are honest and they believe in the unity and integrity of India, can you show me one statement of Rahul Gandhi on his tweet or on public report against Sharjeel, Imam and Umar Khalid, and Arvind Kejriwal against Sharjeel, Imam and Umar Khalid without any if and a but?
Priyanka ji, respond please. Limited time. Quickly.
I must make two submissions. One is, let me please say this categorically and very straight up, that I do not, my party does not stand with anybody, any form of violence. We do not believe in violence as a form of expression at all. Please know that. We are against anybody who's against our country or speaks against our country. There should be no doubt in anybody's head with respect to that. Secondly, I want to tell you that twice now, BJP spokesperson has read out the charge sheet. Now the charge sheet is nothing but a story built up by the police, which must be tested. It is not the gospel truth कि police ने लिख दिया तो ऐसा होगा ही. It doesn't work like that. And that is the reason that till date, that is the reason that on the last date hearing of the Supreme Court also, the Supreme Court said, do you have anything, because it's been 5 years and you've really not been able to bring any concrete evidence so far. So it doesn't, you don't have to just believe a story that is written by the police. हमारे केस में I can relate this to Arvind Kejriwal ji's case also, how it was fabricated in the BJP daftar and how it was promoted in the media, and it was completely bust later.
Whether or not it's a story also has to be decided by the courts. So let's not try and undermine the work that's been done. And if there is ocular and electronic evidence and physical evidence and confessions which are in place, you also have to look back and say why for 5 years these entities have not got bail. The courts and judges themselves have seen that the delay is happening from the defense counsels. They are the ones who are asking for postponement, and this has been repeatedly noted in the lower courts also. Yes, Pradeep Bhandari.
10 seconds.
Dr. Ranganathan, come
Well, Anandji, this tells you categorically here that if hard evidence is pointed out by police in a matter which is not a political matter, which does not directly implicate any political opponent, is called as story by Priyanka Kakkar, that can tell you where her priorities lie. Her priorities again lie with defending Sharjeel, Imam and Umar, Khalid. Point number one. It was the earlier Chief Justice of India, Mr. Chandrachud, who was asked on multiple interviews. He himself categorically said that the delay has happened on the part of the counsel of the accused, which is here also pointed out in page number 22 of the charge sheet, and also said by the trial court, where the accused themselves did not agree to a day-to-day hearing, and the Supreme Court has not lambasted the investigative agency. It is just passed an observation, and this charge sheet is submitted in the Supreme Court. And if an accused has not got bail for the last 5 years, can tell you in a scenario where a jurisprudence basic norm is bail is a norm, not jail. If the accused are not getting bail from the last 5 years, can tell you how watertight the case is.
One has to also say that the accused have not yet been convicted. So last 5 years, if they have not come out, they have also not been convicted. So let's know that also. The process of law should not be so delayed.
Factual. Yes.
Should not be so delayed. Yes, Dr. Ranganathan.
No, look, I keep it very simple. 3,000 page charge sheet, 30,000 pages of evidence, 133 page of court order. I think Priyanka ji should read less of Chetan Bhagat novels and more of this to be calling this a story.
Well, not just Chetan Bhagat.
I'm reading yours, Anand Sahab.
Yeah, souffle. Anyway, but final word, Sonali ji, coming back to you. Thank you for your patience. You know, Harsh Mandar making speeches. Those entities, people who were there at Shaheen Bagh and also at Jamia and also at these places, visiting these students, encouraging them to fight for democracy, rights, etc. They all seem to be connected with those entities who are globally on a mission to try and destabilize cultures, destabilize established elected governments. Have you found that in your book too? Is there a continuum here?
Yeah, absolutely, right on dot. Let me also speak to you as a university teacher now, as somebody who interacts with students on a daily basis.
Right.
What was happening after around 2019 and 2020, in 2019 December and 2020 in the universities was not at all funny. It was absolute instigation of street violence. So you could clearly see, you know, the other esteemed panelist, she has spoken about it being a story. Sorry sir, it was not a story. It was a lived reality of the residents of this city. We could see how the tempo was being built for a total out and out violent street protests, and they were happening. All those FIRs are there, everything is there.
Right.
And if you look at the larger network, yes, I just mentioned to you, there is, Saul Alinsky, he has 10 rules for radicals. It's a very common book which is used by street writers all over the world. So exactly that model was being applied in Delhi. And let me also tell you, this fact we have studied and we have written and we have published this fact that Northeast Delhi was being systematically encircled. So when you encircle common citizens, obviously there is going to be a sense of fear. There was the class 12 board examinations were started there. There were citizens out on the road.
Right.
Yes, of course. There is going to be, when you are consistently creating an insecure atmosphere, you will see that these kind of eventualities, they end up in violent street protests like they did.
Right.
I would say, in hindsight, at that time, even we were feeling, okay, maybe the government could have taken a harder stand, but in hindsight, look at what has happened in Bangladesh, look at what has happened in Nepal. Salute to the government, to the Delhi police for the restrained approach that they took during the 2020 riots. Otherwise, this was a classical regime change model that was being implemented in Delhi. I don't even want to go into what is happening in the courts.
There is this thought that the government could have done more. The intelligence should have been a little more aware. They could have cracked this down and nipped it in the bud. They could have done. The other thing is that they were waiting for somebody, for the cops or the forces to shoot down someone. Now, be it the farmer protests or be it the Delhi riots, there was somebody waiting to trigger somewhere this entire game of victimhood that could happen. But there are others who believe that the establishment could have done a much better job to curb this down and to also nip it in the bud, like it has been done in some other areas in some other states. A stronger, harder lesson. Dr. Ranganathan and to our other panelists, way over time. We're about 6 minutes. We have overshot this conversation. We've got an interesting segment coming up on the other side. So I have to thank you all. Thank you very, very much for joining us.